What we're doing today is racking the mead. Now the process of racking is effectively just to take the mead from one container to another to remove any sediment that might have contained at the bottom, or in this case, pieces of fruit, raisins, slices of orange, that while not actually detrimental to the mead itself, don't need to be in the finished product. They've served their purpose, and transporting it to a new vessel allows you to get clearer mead, and also takes away other stuff and frees you up to use, in the case of the glass bottles, to use them again for something else. Now to do this, everything I've used has been sterilised using a teaspoon of VWP steriliser. It's been left in that because, for a start, one of my larger containers, a demijohn, kindly donated to me by a friend, although unfortunately has some rather odd staining. Looks a little bit like E.T. running away from something. Having tried every method under the sun to clean this, that simply isn't going anywhere. I've tried everything from using boiling water and soap, I've tried using Mr. Muscle, I've even part-filled the container with gravel and used lots of soapy water and lye cleaning products and shaking the hell out of it and leaving it overnight with vinegar in it. Nothing is shifting this, it's indelibly stained onto the glass. So considering this has also then been sterilised overnight twice, I think if there's anything harmful in that, it's not going to be harmful anymore. For the smaller batch, I have another glass container, which is much like the first one. It's just scrumpy, that's all it is. It's a bottle of scrumpy, and for the price of a glass container for 2 litres of this size and shape, you're more or less getting the scrumpy for free. So I'd advise, if you actually want to get a 2 litre container, don't bother buying a special one. Go out and buy something like this, drink it, enjoy, have a barbecue, and enjoy some nice cider on a warm day, and then afterwards use the bottle to make your own brew. And that's what I've done. And as you can see, this one's built up about just over a centimetre, about maybe 7 millilitres of silt at the bottom. Maybe slightly less in the larger container. That's because I actually used a larger quantity of yeast in that one, which is proportional to the size. For the purposes of actually racking the mead off, I have a simple siphon unit, which of course has been sterilised, and I've wrapped it to keep it clean. It's a simple piece of tubing attached to an auto-syphon, so that nobody has to suck or blow on any of this, because you don't want to do that. I picked this up for, I think it was about £7 or £8 at my local homebrew store. In fact, I got everything from my local homebrew store. I heartily recommend that you do. If you do have a local homebrew store in your area, go along, have a look around, befriend the people who run it, because to be honest, they're probably like-minded folk. As I said, I picked up steriliser, some finings, which I've used on this just to take the last of the silt to the bottle. It looks cloudy, but that's more because it's actually a slightly cloudy plastic that the bottle is made out of. Also picked up yeast nutrient, which I'll be using in my next batch of mead, because for the next batch I will actually be making pure mead using champagne yeast. This was actually made using baker's yeast, simply because at that time I didn't have a brew shop that I could go to, and strangely enough, no local supermarkets sell any form of brewer's yeast. It's something that's possibly coming back, maybe not. In any case, these things are readily available online, and if not, then, as I said, befriend someone in a local brew shop. Step number 1. I've removed the polythene from the bottom of the tube, and we place it in here. As you can see, I've put a tray down, simply to keep things neat and tidy. It's not entirely imperative that the tube touches the bottom of there. In fact, as we go on, it's going to be less important. This has actually already been opened because I put finings in here, which is why there's no balloon on top. If you're using the old bottle and balloon method, then good on you for being old school, but bear in mind it does have issues inherent to that. I'll remove that. Now, there's a fairly powerful smell of yeast coming off this, which is not by any means surprising. And there we go. And we are in. And as you should be able to see, the flow is decreasing quite rapidly from the flask on top and heading into the bottom. Filling up rather nicely. Now it's very important to bear in mind that this is not actually touching the bottom, because the last thing we want at this stage is all the sediment to end up getting into the pipe. Shake. Just it. Right. Smells delicious. Now I'm just going to go and put this away. I've given the siphon a quick wash and I've placed it now in a sterile solution. As you can now see, that's now ready for the recycling bin. Whereas, as you can see, our now very slightly cloudy mead is now ready for the attachment of a bung and airlock. Now it's entirely up to you if you want to put a bung with an airlock on top. And the main reason I am is because I just don't want to take any chances, this being one of the first batches of mead I've ever made. The last thing I want is a 5-litre demijohn exploding inside my bedroom, which is where I brew all my mead. And at this stage, it's just generally a good idea. Now what I'll do is I'll put a very small amount of vodka in there, which will act as a filter, a sterile filter, which is why we use vodka. Also because if it accidentally ends up getting sucked back in, it's not going to do it any harm, because all it's going to do is very, very slightly increase the alcohol content, but to be honest, not by an awful lot. But that, more or less, is that ready. Now, the thing about mead that you have to remember is that mead really ought to be left to mature for at least 2 months, if not 6 months to a year. So this is effectively going to remain on the top of my shelf, out of the way, for rather a long time. So I'll probably just label that up, and then that'll be that. So I've now cleaned and sterilised my auto-syphon. It's an important point to remember, depending on the type of sterilising solution that you're using. If you're using a powder-based one, and generally, or if you're using something like Milton's baby bottle cleaning solution, is to rinse it off. Now, the point is, you've used the sterilising solution to kill anything off potentially that's inside it, also kill anything that's inside the water that you've put inside it. So I generally tend to boil a kettle of water, allow it to cool down, and then use that to rinse the solution back out again. Obviously you can get sanitising solutions that can be, that actually don't need to be rinsed at all, that don't apparently have any effect on the flavour, but to be honest, I don't entirely trust that. So I would always make a point of having a sanitising solution that gets washed back out again. But in any case, it's done, it's ready to go. We have our empty container, and we have the smaller batch. Now the smaller batch was slightly different, so it will taste different to the larger batch. I used a full jar of honey for this, where I only used 2 for the 5 gallons. This is a 2 gallon, sorry, for the 5 litres. This is a 2 litre container, and I used half the amount for that. So this will be stronger, as you can tell, it's actually a darker colour, and I used more yeast. However, there's less nutrient in this, so there's every chance that this will actually be less alcoholic, a sweeter rather than a drier mead, purely because there won't be as much alcohol produced. Now, that's it. I'll just remove the balloon, which is always the fun part. There we go. well, we now have our 2 containers of mead. I won't lie, I did it the old-fashioned way with that one. I know you shouldn't, but as I said, this one is the experiment one that is really only for me, and to be honest, it's probably not going to be that nice. But just to try it, I poured myself a sample glass so we can see. Now, of course, apart from the fact that this is a strange brew, a very strange brew, I also happen to be very slightly allergic to mead, or at least some brands of mead. So if I end up turning beetroot red and getting very hot, which is all that actually happens, it's not like anaphylactic or anything, I'll be sure to let you know in the next video. Until then, that's my Home Brew Wednesday. Let's hope it's better next time, when I'll be showing you how to actually brew mead completely from scratch. Proper mead, done properly this time. Cheers.